We are going to go over yoga pose today. We're going to go over upward facing dog. And for this, if you're doing it with us, you're going to want to have 2 blocks handy. So Gabe is going to come into prone position, laying all the way down on the mat. Awesome. And then he's going to slide his hands back next to his rib cage, spread his fingers wide, and press his whole hand and fingertips down into the mat. He's going to hug his elbows together and squeeze his shoulder blades, his scapula together, almost like he would be holding a walnut, or if I put my fist between his shoulder blades, he can actually receive some feedback of squeezing them. From here, he's going to fire up the muscles on his legs, point his toes, and press the tops of his feet down into the mat so that maybe his knees even lift slightly. He's going to use his arms to press the ground away as he lifts his chest up all the way, lifting his hips all the way off the mat. His knees might stay down or they might lift. Looks like he hasn't lifted here. He's going to continue to squeeze his scapula together, pulling his heart forward, and he's going to soften his shoulders down away from his ears. Beautiful. Go ahead and come down out of it. So that is what we're looking for from a upward facing dog. If you can't lift your hips off of the mat, then you're going to stick to cobra, build up your strength, and then eventually, once you can lift your hips off of the mat, you'll come into upward facing dog. The reason that we want the hips lifted off the mat in upward facing dog, and go ahead and take it without your hips lifted for me for a second if you can, is that we're causing a lot of compression and a lot of crunching in the low back here if our hips are on the mat. So by lifting up the hips, we add more length to the low back. So let's talk about cobra, because cobra is, go ahead, come all the way down, is going to be your number 1 alternate pose for this shape. So again, we're still hugging the elbows together. We're still squeezing the scapula together, pulling our shoulder blades away from our ears, as well as pulling our ears up away from our shoulder blades. So we really want to lengthen out through the neck here. From here, Gabe's just going to lift his heart and his head up. Notice how he doesn't start to look forward. He keeps a long neck here. His elbows still squeeze together, his scapula still squeezes together, and there's still space created between ears and shoulder blades. He could come up a little bit taller if he wanted, but still keeping that bend in the elbows. You can actually lift as much as you want as long as your elbows still have a bend in them. Go ahead and come back down for me. All right, so that's going to be alternative option 1. Option 2 is to come into upward facing dog, but to keep your knees on the mat. So go ahead and lift up. He can keep his knees down on the mat. That's going to require a little bit less strength from this pose, but it's also going to keep your low back safe. Again, squeezing scapula together, shoulders down away from ears, ears up away from shoulders. And I actually want you to look forward a little bit more. Yeah. So you could tell when he was looking all the way up that there's a little bit of compression in the neck here. It's not too terrible. If you're looking all the way up, you're adding a lot of compression there. So you can look slightly up, but we don't want to look straight up, or you can just look forward. Go ahead and come all the way down out of it. Okay, another option here is, depending on the length of your arms, you might find it really challenging to lift your hips off of the mat. So what we can do is slide blocks underneath of the hands. And I want you to move your hands back even more so they're next to your rib cage. Good. Okay. So from here, if you come into upward facing dog, you're going to have more lift available to lift your hips up. And then maybe even that lift can lift your knees up, pressing the tops of your feet down. The legs are so strong here. We're squeezing all the muscles down the legs. We're again opening the chest by hugging the shoulder blades together. Go ahead, lower all the way down. And this hands on the block, so you can find a high push-up in this shape. High push-up. I just threw that at him. He wasn't prepared for that. So your hands can be on the blocks in high push-up. You can lower a little bit or all the way down to the mat here. And then you can roll over the toes, come to up dog. You can keep your hands on the blocks and press to downward facing dog. So you can press to downward facing dog for me, please. Thank you. So you can keep your hands on the